So here we have Erica Arce, or as some might say it, Arce.
That's right. That's really good.
That is okay. I'll practice later. It'll get better. Um, having her on the podcast here, real estate agent with, forgive me, I didn't even ask,
With Carlson Group.
Carlson Group.
Mhm.
Right on. So like a little
Yeah.
boutique group.
Yes.
I like that. Those are my favorites because I feel like everybody's really working together. And when you're working for a smaller group like that, it's like it's not like having just one real estate agent. It's like having a bunch of them.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel the same way about teams.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I think it's like a good sales pitch, when you're talking to clients, like not only do you get me, but you get this entire support system that
That's
comes
right.
along with it. So it's like buy one, get
It's like
insert
Costco.
number here free.
Yeah, it's like Costco,
Right on.
when you get a package deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So the podcast, for the people who are new, which Erica is, this is her first time, hopefully not the last.
Yeah, hopefully not.
We want to continue to create content, get her information out there. We treat it kind of like twofold, right? It's really geared towards real estate, but also talking a little bit about entrepreneurial type stuff. And the reason that I try to keep it that way is because at the end of the day, we all know, whether you're a real estate agent or an insurance company, anyone in that kind of what I call like real estate or financial arena, you're basically self-employed, right? Like, you've got to find your own clients. You've got to cultivate your, as some say, your sphere of influence, or maybe you're purchasing leads, maybe you're doing marketing campaigns. No shame in any of it, but bottom line is it's on you, right? And so I know real estate for you is your thing now, but if I recall, before the days of real estate, you were doing things that were a little different, right?
A little different.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let us know.
Still an entrepreneur.
Right.
But I,
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
yeah. I taught yoga full time for 15 years,
Okay.
and that was really lovely. Only two things I ever loved in life in terms of employment, which was art,
Okay.
teaching art,
Yeah.
and teaching yoga.
Gotcha.
And only things I ever loved doing as a young person was making art
Mm-hmm.
and practicing yoga. So it sort of went that way. I went to art school. After I graduated from art school, I went and lived at a big yoga retreat center for a month and did my 200-hour teacher training, which is like,
Gotcha.
in case people don't know, it's like your basic training.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like a different person after that.
Really?
It was really lovely. I think
Different how? Tell me.
It was I had some really excellent teachers.
Okay.
And the place that I went to had been an ashram. So basically a spiritual community where people go to live to give up their possessions and like dedicate their lives to like their spiritual practice. So my teachers were from that generation, but they had already moved back into the world and of things and materials, and owning houses and things like that. And so I really had the benefit of working with people who had a really, really deep spiritual practice. And I think because of that, there was this transference of energy, and I felt like it was very healing, very transformative in a really positive way. And I felt that the kind of healing that I experienced in that training was something that I wanted to share with the world.
Gotcha.
So I didn't know how. I didn't know the how. I knew that I had the skills to do it. And
Right.
so I just went out and started knocking on doors and saying like, hi, I can do this thing, hire me. And then doors just opened and opened and opened and opened. And I was like, well, I guess my timing is really good. And I guess this is really needed. And maybe this is a sign that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I did that for a really long time. And I had no formal business education. It was like, try something, fall on my face, get back up, try it a little differently. Oh, it works now. That was my education into learning how to be an entrepreneur in a wellness industry that really didn't think too highly of making money for doing what you're doing.
Right.
Right, because yoga and money, a lot of people, especially old school people, were like, those things don't really go together. But I feel like I did really well. I taught very, very full-time for many years in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, that whole East Coast area. And then I started to branch out because I got bored with myself and I thought, what else can I offer people? These people that are growing with me for years and years, they need more too.
Sure.
So I started to offer workshops. I started to offer international retreats, national retreats. And so I think I did really well and I was a pretty good value to the community. And when COVID hit, I thought, I'm tired.
Yeah.
This is forcing me to rest, and it's forcing me to consider what it is that I really want in my life and
Hmm.
whether what I'm doing is still a real passion of mine. And so, after a few months of just doing nothing in San Diego, which was, well, lovely because there was hot tub, beach, pool every day.
Right. The weather.
Yeah, and the weather. I even started jogging, like somehow, and it was really lovely because I thought, well, I've always wanted to do real estate, so I think I'm just gonna close the chapter on teaching to go full time, and I'm gonna start studying real estate. And I started studying last year to
Okay.
do that, so that was it's great.
And so,
So
how do you feel that, from
here I am,
there
Orlando.
she is.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel from like a marketing standpoint? It could be a good like transition for you, with the knowledge that you have and, the whole like spiritual healing, all of that. How can you transition that into real estate that you think would be good for clients and, good for people that are looking for that sort of experience?
Yeah, certainly. I think that it can be a very emotional and a
Mm-hmm.
very stressful experience for people. The
Yes.
people buying the house, the people lending the money, the family, friends, the realtors, the team of the realtors. It can be that way. So I think that learning how to manage your energy, learning how to have a good mindset, learning how to ride the waves of emotions and thoughts and feelings throughout the entire process, and also having a team or a person who's really grounded and supportive and who has the skills to be able to actively listen,
Mm-hmm.
actively pay attention, actively understand. I think those things can become really key, and that's where I can merge like my spiritual training with something that is about houses and money and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but part of it is also about, what is it that makes someone happy? What's the real reason behind something, and asking the why. And sometimes the first answer isn't the truth, and you have to dig
Most of the
deeper.
time, it's not.
And then you dig maybe 2, 3, 4 layers deep, and you get down to the truth. And like that thing can be like the real impetus for like really creating a master plan with someone and saying, okay, now I know what you really want. Let's go for it. Because some
Yeah.
people might say, oh, I want a big yard for my dog. Yeah, that's part of it. But what else?
Yeah, we talk about that a lot in
You
sales
know?
in general,
Hmm.
and I like that, kind of finding that why and really, digging deeper because you're right. I mean, gosh, if I can't even tell you how many times I have to ask the same question 2 or 3 times to get what every time I ask it, it's a different answer. And then you really get to the Tootsie Roll of the Tootsie Pop, how many, so
1, 2, a 3.
exactly, exactly. And I love that. And I think that as much as you painted that very eloquently and spiritually, I think as salespeople, that's something that resonates with all of us because I
Mm.
think that, and then the other part of it that I really like that you mentioned is, when we talk about that why, this podcast, a lot of the talk that we talk about is about, you know, financial wealth in the future and, down payments and all of the things that are a part of buying a home. But
Mm.
let's be real, in reality, the majority of home purchases are primary residencies and they are, it's more than just like four walls and a roof, right? Like this
Mm.
is where you raise your family. This is where a lot of people have children. They have loved ones pass away. There's Thanksgiving, there's Christmas. There's a lot that goes on, that comes with purchasing a home outside of the whole, oh, am I buying at a right time? Like, will I make money
Mhm.
on this house?
Mhm.
And I think that we forget about that sometimes in real
Yeah.
estate.
Yeah, like can you envision yourself like having your best memories in this
Hmm.
home? Can you envision your child running down the stairs excited for the holidays at the end of the year?
Right.
Can you envision and watching a good Netflix? There's so many things, and if there's like maybe a pit in the stomach about it, like, oh yeah, in my head I like it because it's pretty on the outside, but in my like heart and my gut there's something that's not saying yes, then I think those things are important too.
Agreed. I mean, because we go back to like asking those questions and digging deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who calls me when I ask, what are you trying to accomplish here? The initial answer is always the same. It's I want to get a low rate and low cost, right? And like I always jokingly say, well, that's ironic
Mm-hmm.
because nobody ever calls me and says I want a high rate with high costs. So it's like the point though is like I know that's not really what's going on here. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we know that goes unsaid, but like what are you really trying to accomplish? Are you purchasing because a lot of times it's, the family has grown. Or sometimes it's like, well, I'm actually getting engaged. Or sometimes it's we're getting older, we're empty nesters, we're downsizing. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, it does. It makes a lot of sense to dig deeper, kind of look at the emotional side of things, because I think we forget about that.
Yeah, and you just actually brought something to mind. In yoga, you've got these energetic centers that run along the length of your spine,
Mm-hmm.
call them chakras.
Yep.
Um, some books talk about more, but we're just gonna talk about like the seven. So the primary chakra, which is at the base of your spine, is considered with safety,
Mm-hmm.
with trust, with security, and safety, trust, and security is all related to home,
Yeah.
roof over your head. So that's going to be the primary interest is like safety, shelter, security. And then
Right.
we can move up to like, how's it going to make me feel inside?
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to feel like I can like grow here? And then you might be able to like move a little higher in terms of like, what will it do for me and my family? You know,
Yeah.
what are the things? Maybe I bake, so I want a really nice kitchen. What will it do for bringing like community in? And then is it something that speaks to my heart? Is it something that's going to make me happy and like so forth and so forth. So, but it's interesting that that's something that you always hear as the first thing, and it kind of parallels to yoga, and that like that's always the primary concern, either consciously or subconsciously, of like I need to take care of my base needs first.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's our job to, do those needs
Yeah.
assessments and figure out what it's really all about. So, you know, the whole idea in regards to real estate and the entrepreneurial spirit, I know that for you right now, it's a lot of, planting those seeds in your business,
Mm-hmm.
finding these new clients, whether that's buyers or sellers. Is there anything that you feel like you're currently doing right now to obtain new clients that might be a little outside of the box, or even, things that you're doing that you're kind of like, I did this and was nervous it might not go well, but then it went really well. Do you have any stories like that?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely the way that some people get clients in real estate, and the way that I'm trying right now is very different than the way I got clients as a teacher,
Right.
because you show up for class and people come.
Sure.
And if they like you, they continue to come.
Yep.
So you sit there, right? And then
Hmm.
maybe you do a little social media here and there, and like the quality of who you are determines, and also the time of your class and all of that
Right.
determines like how many people come to you.
Hmm.
Where in real estate, I feel like it's a little more masculine in terms of like energy, like your energetic output, and that you're like going out and you're fishing
Yeah.
every day and you're trying to see what you can reel in, and there's all these,
Hunting.
you're hunting. Yeah, you're I don't know how to, yeah, whatever.
Right.
I was, yeah, whatever, hunting, fishing, and like you have all these different methods of hunting, or these different guns, I guess, and saying like, okay, maybe I
Different
tried
tools.
tools. Thank you. I'm like guns, jeez. Yeah, different tools and methods of doing it. So there's definitely some things that at first I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and we'll see what happens. And so it's an uncomfortable
Yeah.
growing, but I'm in the moment with it, and I'm doing it, and I'm just seeing what happens, because I think that if we stick to the same methods over and over again and we don't really see growth, we've got to try different things. So the thing is like the getting on the phone
Hmm.
and just calling random people whose houses have expired, or
Yeah.
maybe their property's been withdrawn from the market, or they're trying to sell their house on their own, and trying to get those people not to hang up with you initially, and
Yeah.
then trying to get them through at least a first few sentences to listen to you, and then make an appointment with
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know who
right.
you are. Um,
So
so
have there
that
been anything, is there anything you've done recently that you were like, oof, I don't know if that's going to work, and you find
that's
that
that's it
that's
actually.
it?
Yeah,
So
that's
calling
it.
expired, and it's actually going a little bit better than you had anticipated?
Well, yeah, I mean, out of every 1,000 calls, maybe there's one person I speak to. Like that's,
Yeah,
I don't know the
that you can
actual
have a
statistics.
conversation.
Yeah,
I hear what you're
but
saying. Quite a few calls though.
yeah, there's been some success with that, and another thing that I've been a little resistant to, I think only because I'm a female, and is door knocking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, oh God, is someone just gonna like snatch me and like bring me in their house and chop me up into pieces, and like no one will ever find me again? So
Yeah.
that's like a real fear. So I'm like, oh, do I need pepper spray? Like, what do I need?
Luckily, that doesn't happen all the time.
Just
But
just every other fifth house, or something,
right.
every fifth house. Just avoid the fifth house and you'll be good. So yeah, that, and then I tried it because I was like, I feel resistance towards it because there's fear. And I'm like, but I'm going to try it anyway. And I have, and there have been some people who have been really lovely,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been able to put them on market reports. And they're like, well, we'll let you know if we know anyone
Yeah.
who's selling. So I've I'm definitely trying to put myself out there in ways that other people say work
Sure.
for realtors.
So do you have, I mean,
Yeah.
you with it's the Carlson Group, right?
Well, yeah, I'm with Carlson Group.
Carlson Group. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously they have other people that you're working with, and you guys are kind of, I would envision, like, vibing off of or spitballing off of. Is there anyone in particular that you're currently working with that's kind of like your mentor right now?
Greg.
Greg?
Greg Carlson.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Right on.
We've got a really great team. It's all guys and me,
Oh, wow.
which I love
Yeah.
because it's just very, very relaxed and we're very cool and we're very like chill with each other. Even
Yeah.
this morning we had a little like morning dance. We put on some hip hop and we did some dance before our calls and it was really fun.
Well, and that gives you kind of a unique, position at the company, because I know that there are situations in real estate where sometimes it takes a female voice. Sometimes it works better with, and it's nothing sexist per se, but
Mm.
you're gonna find women that want to work with women, and that's you.
Mm.
You're the only one, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually happy working with an all guy team. With yoga, like the vast majority of people that I've seen over the last 15 years have been women.
Mm-hmm.
I think in hot yoga you see more men, but the vast majority are women.
Hot yoga is more men, huh?
More men. 'Cause
That's
it's
interesting.
more physical.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
I don't
power
do
yoga.
much yoga, but I went through a phase for a while when I was younger where I had a friend of mine, a girl. She wasn't my girlfriend, but a female friend of mine
Mm-hmm.
who taught yoga, and I would go to her class to support her.
Aw.
But the classes that I liked to go to that she was doing were like the slow flow ones, and I think it was like me and 6 other women over the age of 55. And that for me is my favorite kind of yoga, because you know what? I'm not the most flexible person. And so I looked at it almost as like a church type of aspect, because I enjoyed holding poses for a long period of time and really deepening in them and utilizing it like as a mental activity,
Yeah.
more than like trying to get physical and use it as like a cardiovascular or even like strength activity. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. And I sometimes think about getting back to it. I went like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm a member of Lifetime Fitness,
Okay.
and so I'll
Yeah.
pop into classes there from time to time, but
Yeah.
definitely nowhere near what I mean. There's people that are going, 3, 4, 5 days a week.
They do. They really, really do. And I
It,
love slow flow.
yeah,
I'm there with you too. Like I like all kinds of yoga, but slow flow is nice because you can really, for what you said, like dig into the postures, let it be a
mm-hmm,
mental practice. In terms of like a church component, like in your own mind, maybe the teacher will offer something as an intention, or just you on your own will have something that you come to over and over again as you practice.
right.
So I think that can be, spiritual healing beneficial.
Yeah, there's something about it's quiet. I'm in like a high-paced environment. I'm on the phone a lot and podcasting, and constantly
Mm.
there's screen time. So sometimes it's nice to like be awake
Mm.
and but in a quiet,
Yes.
like setting. It's
Yeah.
kind of nice.
I relate to that. I really do. I really do.
So
Yeah.
that's my my yoga thing, and I like the whole idea with the chakras that you had made mention of. I had an employee in here that was also very into yoga, and he used to talk about Kundalini yoga.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a
And
different
I
kind
guess
of
that's
yoga.
like the trippy one, right?
It can be, I guess. There's a lot of repetitive movement, a lot of mantra, sometimes a little bit of kirtan, which is like a call and response. They're kind of like songs to the gods,
Ah.
and then people in front.
Yeah, I
like,
hear you
using-
can like have really spiritual like experiences.
Oh, yeah.
If but you're not supposed to try to have one.
No,
It just happens.
you're right. Don't try.
Don't try, just let it happen.
Do it, but don't do it.
Right. So that was always real interesting to me. And so going back to like getting new business and everything along those lines, we've talked about calling on the expireds and everything. Is there anything that you have done? And I know you said it's very different, and I can totally understand that. Is there anything that you've done that you've kind of tried to go after new clients by also utilizing like tactics or ideas that you were using when you were doing yoga?
Yeah. So I'm thinking of this game I used to play in college. It was like a computer game called Civilization.
All right.
And it's like it was a game where you could choose to be like Gandhi or like
Genghis
Elizabeth or
Khan.
Genghis Khan or something, and then
Okay.
you'd have like you'd be able to win the game using either like a cultural win, an arts win, like
Okay.
like a military win or whatever. And so I feel like what I'm trying to go for is the social media win.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm trying to, I just very recently opened up a separate TikTok account for real estate, a separate Instagram, etc., and YouTube. So I'm trying to build out that way, the way that I did with like my yoga Instagram,
Okay.
which is like where I would always post inspirational things, how to's, like this is where we were, this is where we're going, this is where my classes are, and just offer like value, like little bits of value.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
I would love to see you back here in like, 30 to 60 days with like, I want to hear results of, because all of your yoga stuff I would envision is still up, right?
oh yeah,
So like if you were posting, and I'm just, using round numbers, but like if you were posting, say, like every day for your yoga class years ago, why not look at that post day to day and say, how could I make this exact post that I posted, say, like 3 years ago? How can I make this relate to a way that I would try to gain clientele in real estate? I mean, if you've already kind of like written a basic blueprint
mm-hmm.
and it was working for you, why change it? Like
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, what I find is with real estate agents, insurance agents, CPAs, like most of the trainings that I go to for what I do, all you have to do is just every time they say lender or, loan officer, just change it to real estate agent and it becomes a full-blown real estate agent training course. So if
Mm-hmm.
you've already put together like a blueprint, it's like I would just go every day and be like, well, what did I do on, November 16th, 2021,
That's a great idea.
and just, why overthink it,
Right. No,
right?
that's a
Like
really great idea.
we did an inspirational quote about the importance of like letting go and this and that and like relate it to real estate. Like, hey, let go of the fact that interest rates aren't what they were in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
right? Focus on the positives in regards to like even the potential of home ownership. You know how many people have to deny for a home loan on a regular basis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like being able to buy a home in general is something that you should give gratitude for, right?
I love that. Thank you so much for that idea. I'm gonna tag you in that when I do post and be like, that was his idea.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, no, I
Follow
mean,
him.
it was your idea first. That's the
Uh,
point,
yeah.
right? You put together that blueprint. I'm
Mhm.
just the idea is to just change, it's all interchangeable
Yeah.
in sales and going after clients. I mean, it's all at the end of the day, it's about relationships, right?
Exactly.
And well, building and maintaining trust,
Exactly.
which
Yeah.
I would envision if you were running a successful practice for a while, there was a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It felt really nice. I think when I years ago when I had the idea to do my first international retreat, it was to go to Mexico. And I think for people who live in Texas, they're like, "Well, yeah, we've all been to Mexico." But
Right.
if you're in New Jersey, Mexico's very
Yeah.
far away. And I was like, "Okay,
I grew up in
let's
Ohio, so
right."
yeah, Mexico. We went
It
there
was-
when we were younger, and it
yeah.
was like a big deal.
Yeah. And so, it's tricky because like you have to go find a place and then it's, I have my specs about like how I want it to look and everything and feel and then you put as like as a yoga teacher, you invest your own personal money into securing the rooms,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then you want to be able to make all of that money back
Of course.
and then after that, then you hope that more people sign up,
Yeah.
right? So, and here's where like yogis are like money and spirituality, but you do have to think about it. It's like, well, I do want to earn money for a living, and
Of
yes,
course.
yes, I want a free vacation, but I also want to get paid for what I do because I think I do what I do really well, and so that whole thing of like offering experience, and I thought I have to have 23 people on this retreat. My very first retreat, I was like, I have to have at least 23 people. And I did everything that you can possibly think of to like make it happen.
Right.
And I got 23 people.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was so happy and I had no one helping me. Like back then I didn't have any mentors for anything.
Right.
Now at least I feel like I'm on a team and that's why I chose to be on a team and chose to be at Keller Williams because A, they're supposed to have like the best training and B, being on a team is nicer because you can bounce things back and forth and ask questions and
Of course.
that's something that I never really attempted. And if I were to go back in time, I probably would reach out to people.
Well, when you
to
come
get
back on, we can have up to 4 people here. I'd love to pick everyone's
That would
brain
be
and
so
have
fun.
more of the team in here. But one of the things I picked up on when you were kind of telling that story was, and I was happy to hear this, you mentioned that there's an initial investment where you have to, you have to rent the room, you have to put that money up front, and from there you have to hope in this story that 23 people showed up. And the reason that I bring that up is because one of the things that I've identified about a lot of real estate agents is that there is this idea, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but there's this idea that you can get your real estate license and you can basically, outside of your license, make no investment into your career, no financial investment into marketing or anything along those lines, not even book a room, right? And that
Yeah.
eventually you'll start to close deals and make money. And although I can't say it hasn't happened, um, I think it's foolish to have anyone that starts a business not think that they have to invest in
Mm-hmm.
themselves financially in one way or another. I mean,
Yeah.
we always relate it to like if I wanted to start a pool cleaning company,
Mm-hmm.
right? And um, this is very timely because Thanksgiving is next week. If I sat down with like 20 of my family members and they're like, "How are things, Matt?" And I'm like, "I'm good. I'm actually about to start a pool cleaning company." And they're like, "That is amazing. What are you going to name it?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's going to be Matt's Pool Cleaning Company." I actually met with my bank and I walked in and I've been dealing with the bank teller and I'm taking out a $30,000 small business loan and I'm going to buy a truck and I'm going to buy the chemicals and I'm going to buy the pool cleaning equipment. And they're like, all going to say to me, "That is amazing, Matt. Like, we're going to really root for you. We hope that you have a successful journey in your pool cleaning company," right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody bats an eye.
Mm-hmm.
But as a real estate agent, if you sat down and said, everyone's like, "How are things, Matt? It's Thanksgiving." It's like, "I'm a real estate agent. That's what I'm going to do." And they're like, "Oh, that's great. Tell us about it." You're like, "So I took out a credit card. I spent $30,000. I got it on a marketing campaign. I've got this going. I'm going to do a Zillow lead share. I'm going to do all of this." They're like, "Wait a second. You spent 30 grand to becoming a real estate agent? Like, that doesn't sound right."
Right.
Right?
Right.
But it's like, it's a business. You're an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. One company's blue collar goes buys chemicals, a truck, and pool cleaning equipment for 30K. Another one invests $30,000 into his business, and one of them is like looked at like they've got two heads.
Like, really?
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it is. It
It's
is.
really
It's
weird.
interesting.
And so when you mentioned that, like, yeah, as a yoga instructor before, I was like, I had to rent a room and I had to get 23 people in. I'm like, good for you. Like, so you get it.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't going to all of these people and saying, like, "Hey, give me money. And if I get 23 people, then we'll have this retreat."
No way. They would have
Right.
never committed.
And so I always mention that to real estate agents because, and I kind of like blame it on other agents as to why the business is like this because there's a lot of recruiting in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like you can make no initial investment, but imagine if the pool cleaning guy showed up to your house and said, "I'm here to clean your pool." And they're like, "All right, sweet, go ahead." And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna need some money for some chemicals. I'm gonna need some money for, I rode my bike here, so I need money for a truck." Like that would never happen.
Like, who are you, dude?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I want to commend you for being willing to invest in what is a career, and it sounds to me like you get it.
I do. I hope I do. Well, I feel like I've been there before in a different career,
Yeah,
and so I feel maybe a little more confident in myself than maybe someone else who maybe came from a different career that wasn't an entrepreneurship, maybe a 9 to 5,
sure.
where you get a steady paycheck.
Yeah.
Because it feels safer. It's less scary. You can trust that.
Which
That's
chakra is
coming in.
that?
Right.
That's here.
Your third chakra,
That's the
right? Well,
third one.
yeah. Well, also like
Okay.
you're safe, like so root chakra, you're safe. You
Yeah.
can expect that paycheck over and over again, and like
Mm-hmm.
401k matching and all of
Yeah.
that. When you're an entrepreneur, you don't get that.
Yeah.
You don't get paid time off. I mean, just those things you have to plan for all of that all on your own.
Yeah.
So it can definitely be a little scary. But also, you can always do courageous things and be scared at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and there's a much
Um,
greater upside. And,
yeah.
the one thing I also heard you say that I think is interesting is, the whole yoga aspect of things where like you're not supposed to make money. That's like somehow profit is a dirty word. But
Mm,
at the end of the day, I think it's mainly about, are you providing value?
right.
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 So like if your clients are seeing value in what you do and you're providing an experience, you're providing I mean that's really at the end of the day like what we do is not rocket science. I mean it's
Mm,
not easy to where anyone can do it, but it's also not like open heart surgery. No one's going to die.
mm.
Like, everyone's going to go home and yes, it can be stressful.
Yeah.
And so if you can help create a good experience, like what is wrong with, the like, what's wrong with collecting a profit for providing value to a client, whether it's yoga, real estate, insurance, whatever it is you do?
Yeah, it's something I never really subscribed to. So, but
Profit or value?
oh no, like the connection of like profit being a dirty word for
I got
yoga
you.
to like profit being a good word in general.
Where do you think that comes from in yoga?
I think probably because it can then become self-serving
Right?
and come from a place of like ego, need, want, desire, and things like that. And so I think we want to try and leave those energies out of the equation and try and be as like centered and pure as you can be and less transactional when you're dealing with a human being or a group of human beings in a setting where you yourself have trained to potentially be like a spiritual guide.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what it is. And I remember being at an ashram in the Bahamas years ago. I had like bronchitis and I was like, I'm not getting better. And my husband, no, he was my fiance at the time. He was like, go to the Bahamas for 3 days. I didn't take any of my medication, my antibiotics, and I just laid at the beach for 3 days and was better. But I
Mm-hmm.
also got like some kind of reading from one of the, like the gurus, the
Mm.
swamis at the ashram.
Those things terrify me.
Yeah. And so I went to pay him afterwards, and he was like, I don't handle money. He was like, you can put it in there.
Oh,
Like even that is like he does the reading, but he doesn't touch.
the mark of the beast.
He doesn't touch the money,
Mm.
right? Because we don't want it like.
So I want to tell you a short story that touches on something we were talking about before we were in here. Now that we're getting all trippy, and I want your take on it. Right. So right before you came here, I was at the Burke Center for Youth.
Yes.
We were there checking out there, and I think that podcast is coming out literally this week. So we did an initial podcast with Steve. They call him Coach.
Mm-hmm.
He is the executive director of the Burke Center for Youth out in Driftwood. They take in foster children, boys only, between the ages of 10 and 18.
Mm-hmm.
All of the kids that are there, these are children that unfortunately come from very, very tough homes, to the point where they either do not have parents because their parents are non-existent, and I mean like dead. Their parents are either incarcerated or their parents have basically been deemed not fit to be parents. So these aren't like kids
Yeah.
that are like they are in the system. They are not going home. This is their home, and so he had a lot of stories to tell. And so I wanted to view the facility so that when we put the podcast up, we can kind of do some additional promotional things
Mm-hmm.
with the intention of getting more eyeballs, getting more people that either want to volunteer
Sure.
or that want to donate,
Mm-hmm.
and just be a part of something that is really, really awesome. And so I went there today to view it with my camera guy and everything like that. And so one of the things that resonated with me, because I don't need to go into all of it because there's a podcast on it, but one of the things that resonated with me was that they do a lot of work with horses. And the reason that they do a lot of work with horses is because at the end of the day, we don't think about it this way because horses are pretty much domesticated at this point, but horses are a prey animal.
Mm-hmm.
They do not really even defend themselves for as large as they are. Like if there's a situation, there really is no fight, it's all flight. And so when horses interact with human beings, they're always initially skeptical to a new person because they need to, kind of feel your energy, understand what you're about. And
Mm-hmm.
then at the end of the day, they need to be able to trust you,
Sure.
which is somewhat of a similar feeling and situation that a child who has been abused, whether that be physically, sexually, or neglected,
Mm-hmm.
kind of feels.
Right.
And so I'm walking this property and I'm seeing all the things that they have. And I'm thinking, wow, this is really, really great that all of these people come together and do these things for these children. And there's these activities that are not only keeping them busy, keeping them out of trouble, but, working with them emotionally through these animals. And here's the part of the whole story. And this is what I want to ask you about the money thing with yoga. The thing that I started noticing about like halfway through me being there is you look around and you see all of these people that are making this like 50-acre property happen. And like something like 95% of them are volunteers. And I talked to a few of them. They're there doing work, not making any money, right? But what I noticed was on the surface of things, the volunteer work appears to be for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed through their conversations and the way that, they had this pride and even just the way that they were holding themselves, I could tell that the volunteer work that they were doing was also like therapeutic for them,
Sure.
because you don't know what these volunteers have been through. You don't know what's
Yeah.
going on in their lives. And so when you made mention of like yoga and things being like self serving, um, and things like that, it's like maybe it is.
Hmm.
And part of me was wondering, like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's wrong with somebody doing something to help someone else and gaining something in return when, like, it's all good,
Yeah. And
right?
it's an exchange of energy. Like money is an energy. So,
Yeah.
money is an energetic exchange, and it can be physical or digital, and like that's how you get,
Well,
in
unless
return
you're,
for the things.
yeah,
But if you're volunteering, it's sort of the same thing, and I think that's one of the things I love about teaching yoga is because it releases so many good, brain chemicals.
yeah,
It's like people say thank you, they feel better, and then you feel better. There's so many times I've taught a yoga class, and I mean, maybe I've been grumpy or was really tired or what have you, and by the end of the class, I feel so much better too. There's something that happens, and then even with volunteer work, it's like, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that being self-serving because you're doing something good karmically, right?
sure.
You're doing good work. So what you're doing is improving the lives of at least one person,
Yeah.
and that has to make you feel good. And then what a good thing to do, like, and to even, like, for lack of a better word, even be addicted to is doing good things,
Yeah.
right? Do good things. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think like it's a nice exchange.
Well, and again, I mean, you're providing
Yeah.
value. And even if these people were being compensated, like, would we be in a position to say, like, oh, well, why should any of these people even be paid? Like, they should be doing it for the cause. Like, so I just really wanted to harp on the whole idea of, because I'm sure you're aware of this and we've been talking about it a lot on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast, is a lot of the lawsuits that are going on right now in the real estate community where you've got, you know, basically the general public and a lot of legal professionals who make a lot of money, by the way, saying like real estate agents are overpaid. And I'm like, by what metric?
Right.
Overpaid in comparison to a volunteer? Yeah, sure, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but not overpaid to an attorney? Like, what are we talking about? And so there's a lot of talk of value right
Mm-hmm.
now on this podcast with real estate agents
Mm-hmm.
and providing value and that value, if clients are happy and they're getting something from it and you're like, hey, here's my fee or whatever, to
Mm-hmm.
to provide you this value. I mean, I think that people are always willing to pay for value,
Right.
whether it's money or in this instance, time. When I'm talking about these volunteers, because I really think they're there for the boys, but I can also tell they're there for themselves. And I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with that.
That's very heart centered.
I felt great when I left there. I
Yeah.
really did. I look forward to this
I
coming
want to
out.
go. You made me want to go.
You should go. I
Yeah.
mean, first of all, it's beautiful. It's a 50-acre property, and there's like so many things on there that help enrich these children's lives. And you've got 5 therapists that are on there that are there, like to help these kids out. And it truly is a beautiful thing that so
Mm-hmm.
many people have come together and done this. And like I said, I mean, they're always looking for volunteers. I was telling my girlfriend about it, and she was like, "I want to go. Like, what can we do?" And
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's a lot to do, and
Right.
it was cool. It
Nice.
was cool.
Nice. I want to speak to something you said
Yeah,
about like someone saying, or people in general saying, real estate agents make too much money.
yeah,
And I feel like that's something I could relate that to yoga as well. But I'm just sticking to real estate itself. I think that oftentimes people will say things without the backup of a lot of research,
hmm,
and they'll be allowed to say those kinds of things without the backup of a lot of research. And so maybe what they see is the tip of the iceberg, but they don't really see everything that lies beneath and
right,
everything that you need to do as a realtor to potentially make one commission, right? There's a lot of work. And outside of that, I think that people who are not in the arena,
yeah,
right, fighting, boxing, like that sort of like metaphor,
of
visual,
course,
right? Those are the people who aren't really ever going to understand what it's like to be standing in that ring
yeah,
and doing that kind of work. So I feel like if you're not willing to stand beside me and do the work,
yeah,
and you're not willing to really see what it's like, then maybe you don't. Okay, there's freedom of speech, but at the same time, you know. Less
Well,
judgment.
yeah, I
Less
mean,
judgment.
one of the sayings that I use a lot on here is there's a difference between, um, opinions and
Yes.
being qualified,
Yeah.
right?
Is
Like,
that a
and
qualified opinion?
well, the joke is that I can
Yeah.
have multiple opinions on hair care products,
Mm,
but I'm not really qualified to give advice on them,
mm,
right?
mm,
And
yeah.
believe it or not. So I actually use this exact thing. We talked about Charles Heinzelman. Shout out to Charles. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Your advice on hair care products is going to be much better than mine. I promise. Because I said this to Charles, and he asked me. He goes, "I have to ask. Like, well, what do you do?" I was like, "I use bar soap on my head."
Okay.
So like,
And I'll tell you about the products I use. Yeah, it's funny.
but yeah, I mean, so that's the difference. I mean, that's a good point where you have people that are, speaking as if they're giving advice when in reality they're just giving opinions, and we know everyone has one of those.
Mm,
Um, so
yeah.
yeah, unless you, as you put it, stand beside me in kind of the arena or the ring, like really your judgment is not really just.
It's not just, and I'm not going to hear it. Like, I was watching Matt Rife, comedian,
Yeah,
stand up on Netflix.
he's
He's
from
gonna.
Ohio.
Oh, oh wow,
That's where I'm
he's gonna be
from.
in
Yeah.
Austin like tomorrow or
Oh
something like
yeah.
that. Like sometime this week. Anyway, I like him, and he was talking about like having his like social media and like people just like they're just able to say things
Oh yeah.
and like with no repercussions or no
Hmm.
like anything, and and he was just going on and on about that. But his point was at the end like. If there's something that you love to do that brings you joy, that brings other people joy, and it feels like something that is what you're meant to be doing in the world, and you want to share that, don't let anyone else try and tear you down.
Sure.
It was sort of like the end of his like whole stand-up act, and he dropped the mic and he was like, do what you're gonna do. Like,
You know where he got his start?
I don't. He like posted one TikTok, right, and it like blew
No,
up.
he got his start through what was that show with Nick Cannon? Wildin' Out.
Oh,
Remember MTV's Wildin' Out?
oh my gosh,
Somebody said
MTV.
somebody said this to me the other day, and I was like, "No way!" And
You
then
must
I
have been
went
like a
down.
child.
That's why it's so funny you brought it up because I didn't even really know who Matt Rife was, and that's why I knew he's from Ohio because somebody mentioned this comedian to me, and then I went down the rabbit hole, and there he is. He's like, gosh, he's probably got to be like 17,
Yeah.
18 years old, and he's on Wildin' Out, and they're like, they do all that like not sketch comedy, but like just whatever it's called, like off the
Off
cuff
the cuff,
comedy,
like improv,
improv
yeah,
comedy, and he
which I
basically
love.
says that is what he attributes to a lot of his success in the like what do they call that when you're with the crowd work.
Crowd work, yeah,
Yeah, he's like that's
yeah.
how I got so good at crowd work because that's basically what like Wildin' Out was.
He is good at crowd work.
Right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
He
like I
is.
said, I didn't really know who he was up until a couple weeks ago, and he's from right outside of Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Fun neighbor.
everybody loves Matt Rife. Good looking
Yeah,
kid, right?
yeah. He's quite beautiful. He's got a beautiful little face,
Right?
and he's funny. So boom, boom.
There it is. Well,
Yeah.
that is something I find that I think people take for granted. Women love men with a sense of humor.
Well, that is true. That is true.
How does that work where's that in the chakras?
Sense of humor is like it's joy,
Okay.
right? So that's your second chakra, like personal power.
Yeah.
Like, what's your personal power?
Joy's a good one in terms of real estate. I think
Yeah.
again, people forget, I actually listened to an NPR podcast about gosh, probably 5 years ago about
Mhm.
joy. And I feel like people experience joy but really don't like bask in it
Mhm.
well enough because it is so temporary.
I know.
And I think that I go to all of my closings if I'm in town. I go to my closings and I get to see those little moments of joy. And I think unfortunately sometimes home buyers take it for granted.
Yeah.
It's like this is a big deal. Like you should really be excited about this. And
Allow yourself to be
exactly,
joyful.
I remember my first moment of like feeling like what I would consider to be like where I noticed it. It was very shortly after this podcast on NPR. I used to live up in Cleveland. I used to live very close to Lake Erie, close enough to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take my dog every Friday morning. I used to call it Pony's Day. Her name's Pony.
Oh, wow.
And I used to take my dog to the beach every Friday, like rain or shine. That was like when she could like blow off steam and we, throw the stick into the lake and stuff.
That's awesome.
And I remember I saw it was like 7 in the morning, so it's really early in the morning, and I see this huge bald eagle fly over with a fish in its like talons. And I remember seeing it, and I was like, no one was around. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so cool. I've never seen anything like that before. And right then and there, because I just heard the podcast recently, I was like, this is joy. Like, I gotta be like,
Yeah.
right? I gotta own
Yeah.
this moment and be like, that was freaking awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I
Who
think,
sees that?
right. And of course,
Yeah.
it flew away. And like, even when I'm telling the story now, it's nowhere near as cool as when I was there.
Well, I was seeing it in my head for sure. I had
Good.
this whole scene
Yeah.
play out in my head.
Yeah, it was really cool. This
Yeah.
big, beautiful bird with a fish in its talons just flying right over my head, like doing its thing. And it was super sweet. And I think in home ownership, we had those moments come and go sometimes a little too quickly.
Yeah, yeah, I think that. But there are a lot of people, myself included, that sometimes I don't celebrate like the little moments.
Mm,
And one of my friends, who is like an amazing speaker and educator, she says like you have to celebrate
yeah,
the little wins.
I'm guilty of not celebrating.
Yeah, even little ones, little champagne, or if you don't drink like sparkling, bubbly
Sure.
soda, I don't know, to do that. And I think that's really important, like
I always
to mark the moments.
Yeah, I always refer to the Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant.
Hmm?
I always refer to the Kobe Bryant thing when people tell me I need to celebrate in the moment. There's a video of him in the NBA Finals, and it's like I think it's like game 3, and then the Lakers are up 2-1,
Mm.
and the reporter after the game is like, what's going on, Kobe? Like, you guys are up 2-1 in the playoffs. Like, you're crushing it. It looks like you're gonna win everything. He's like, how do you feel about it? He's like, it's good. He's like, oh, you're not happy? Like, you're not excited? And he looks right at the reporter and goes, work's not over yet.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, it's not over yet. Like, yeah, okay, we're up in the playoffs and
Yeah.
like we're winning and we're expected to win, but like we have to win.
Right. Then we can.
Then we can celebrate.
Yeah, we do.
And that's sometimes how I feel like I forget about the little wins because I've got like bigger ideas, and I'm like, this is only a win in game 2. There's we got to win 4 games in a row. We got to win 4 out of 7 to like win the championship. So like winning 2 games out of 4 right now, sure, like I'm not disappointed, but I'm not celebrating either.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand. Especially if you have a really big vision, you're just like you're taking the steps and you're taking the steps and you're taking the steps. And I hope you do, when you get to that last step, have your big celebration.
Well, that's just it. I feel like if you're not mindful of the little ones, even when the big one comes, you probably already,
Yeah.
I feel like if there's one thing that people want that we all have in common, there's one thing that everybody wants. I feel like, you know what it is? More.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. You get to the top of that mountain and you're like, this is great. What's next?
Even if it's like, oh, I've obtained all this financial wealth and all of this, the next thing is like, okay, now I need to work on my spirituality. Like, oh, and then after that, it's like, I guess eventually you can reach this, what do they call it in yoga?
Nirvana.
Nirvana, right?
You just like cycle out of the whole like rebirth process. But yeah, that's interesting. And I wonder how that would shift if we all lived 200 years and we were all really, really young and healthy and vibrant for 100 years out of those 200 years.
Now you're tripping me out.
Right?
You want to know why?
Why?
I talk about this all the time.
No.
And here's why. So fun fact I've never even talked about on the podcast is one of my little hobbies that I do is I like to brew my own beer.
Ooh.
Right?
Okay, now I need a beer before I go.
Yeah. So I know a lot about yeast and brewing beer and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I read in one of my beer brewing books is when you brew beer, the yeast ultimately eats whatever sugars that you have that are, and that's how fermentation takes place. And these yeasts, they eat the sugars and basically fart out alcohol. So like when you're drinking yeast farts. Sorry.
Wow.
And the yeast don't die. They literally eat, they get full, and then they lie dormant in the bottom. And you can just siphon off the beer, the wine, whatever you're making. And if you replenish it with sugar, the yeast will reactivate, eat again, and lie dormant. And the only thing that can kill yeast is trauma, which would be like if you were to overheat it, even freezing it, you might not kill it.
Okay.
Or if you were to just basically burn it, do something traumatic to it. And if you took care of it, literally, there are strains of yeasts in beer today that are debatably like thousands of years old still.
That's incredible.
Because yeast can be cultivated, it can be put in mason jars. They use these fancy vials, and you can basically make a yeast cell live forever. Well, what's interesting is that scientists say that the like molecular breakdown of yeast cells and human cells are very, very similar. You have yeast, we have yeast all over our body, everywhere, and every, so
yes.
like,
yes.
and they scientists have said that if they could figure out a way to ultimately make yeast cells and human cells like identical, that they could make it to where human beings would only die of trauma. And then mathematically, they said that the average life expectancy would be around 300 years.
Hurry up, man.
The average life expectancy would be 300 years, and that people could live, ultimately forever, as long as they didn't like get shot, die in a car accident, get murdered. And from like an age standpoint, like everyone would age out, like women would age out around like 18, 19 years old, and men would age out around like 25.
Damn. Wow. Well, hurry up, scientists, because
They probably already have it, though. That's what's crazy. Because to your
They
point,
really
like,
do.
what would it look like with a 300-year life expectancy? Would human life become more important, or would it be worth less?
I think it's interesting. I think like your culture will determine that.
Yeah.
Like how I think each culture will have its own way to work through like the longer lifespan. Maybe Americans would just work harder. I don't know. I don't know.
I definitely feel like you would, think about it this way. If everybody lives to be 300, you're going to have more people on the earth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I would think, excuse me, I would think that a human life would become less valuable, and that older human lives would become more valuable. But those ages between the average life expectancy is 300, then I would say like anyone that's under 100 years old is definitely looked at like, well,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're still green.
You'd have to be like that. And like, so
Yeah.
then it makes me think of things like, there'd be more car accidents because there's more cars, and there's going to be more murders because there's more murderers. And so like, when people are dying, if they're young, is it like, well, he was only, because right now, if someone 15 years old died, you'd be like, oh my God, they had so much life to live.
Yeah.
That is so terrible.
Right.
But then would it almost be like, they were only 15. Like, it's not like they lived that long and had much like enrichment, and I don't know.
That's one way. Okay.
That's one way.
I have a challenge for you. Do you write?
Yeah.
I feel like you write.
I journal.
You journal. Okay.
Yeah.
My challenge for you and listeners is to write a 5-page complete story about this from beginning to end of how it would start and how it would end, the little things in between that.
I've got 3 different stories on how it could go.
Yes.
The one I just represented is just one of my, it's not what I think would happen. I'm here to, I don't know.
You don't know? I don't know either. I would hope, and I think what I would want, because I'm a Pisces.
Gotcha.
And I always wear my rose-colored glasses.
Right.
And I want to like, everything's going to be like rose-colored and pretty. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe we'll like enter a golden age of like humanity, and we'll have like a renaissance. Like that would probably be.
Yeah, but okay, let's go down that rabbit hole and say that's what we do. Like, how do we stop all these people from just breeding like crazy?
Yeah.
Like, is birth control going to be a thing? Is like, are we as a society going to start control? Like, because I like to think of myself as a big fan of freedom, and like, is the government going to step in and tell me how many kids I can have?
I hope not, but aren't we like colonizing Mars?
Well, we got to figure out how to get there first.
Yeah, well, we've got, if we live till 300, then we've got some time.
We've got some time.
So we can send like the qualified to Mars, and they can be a reality show over there on Mars, or the moon or something, and little stations and space stations. And so I think we can spread out across the universe that we can traverse within a specific amount of time.
Otherwise, because you have to think about this, like if you're not biologically aging past the age of like between 19 and 25, and you live to be 300, how many kids can you have?
Ooh, yeah. So then how
Like,
long are you fertile? Are you fertile for like 100 years?
The whole time. Nothing is stopping you from like being healthy outside of like a bullet or a cliff or a gun or whatever.
No.
The only reason average life expectancy is 300 is because, shit happens.
Maybe we could just like max it. We could all like collectively agree on each planet or station or whatever that there's a max number of offspring that can be had.
See, now you're governing. I've thought about all of this, right? Because like, I mean, think about somebody who just literally just was like, I'm gonna have as many kids as I can. Well, we'll just start you at 20, right? So if you live to be 300 years old, I mean, you've basically
Lord.
got 280 children you could have if you really were getting after
Do
it.
they want that though?
I don't know. I mean, there are women out there that have, 10, 12, 14 kids. Like they exist.
Jeez.
And I would envision that if their reproductive systems allowed it, they'd continue.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Well, I would say
I did not think this podcast was going to go
I
this
would
way.
not I would not want that. I think I'd probably stop at like 2 or 3. And I'm also one of these weird people that's like, well, what if and this is probably a what if that's already happening, and I think it's already happening with at least sheep or lamb or something like that
Oh,
that
yeah,
they're
yeah.
able to grow
Cloning.
no, growing like a fetus outside of a womb and creating an artificial womb.
Gotcha.
I'm one of those people that's like, but I like my body the
It'll
way.
be fine. That you're not hearing me. Like
Yeah.
everything will bounce back.
Oh,
Yeah. Like
I'm good then.
like there is no aging. There's no like wrinkles.
Stretch
There's no like
marks.
stretch marks. There's none of that. Your hair is going to be amazing. Like
My hair won't fall out.
no, none of that.
Okay.
Like
But there's
there
that whole like
there is no
9 months.
oxidation,
There's
right?
a lot of this happening.
Yeah.
And hormonal fluctuations, and I'm just like have it on the side there by like one of the couches growing. You check in with it a couple times a day. Hi, baby.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that. But as far as like the physicalness of your body and the health of your body, like it's
Yeah.
going to be just fine in this scenario.
I love that.
Well,
When can we start?
there's part of me that thinks they've already got it figured out. I mean,
Probably.
you see these
Yeah.
photos sometimes of these time travelers and stuff. Who knows, man?
know.
There's somebody out there that's, 300 years old.
I know.
So,
Gosh.
yeah, that took a weird turn.
Well, I took a weird turn the other day when I was talking about how I was like a 300-year-old vampire, and then I'm part of this long line of like vampires that date back to like 5,000 years, and I've taken a lot of improv classes,
Gotcha.
so I can tend to like go there with the
Well,
silly.
that'll help you in real estate.
Yeah, it will, and it has.
Yeah.
I can tend to go there with the silly sometimes, and then sometimes people are like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "No, man, I'm just like we're just talking about weird stuff."
Right.
Yeah.
So I've got one more question for you, real estate related, and then we'll
Bring it all back in.
we'll kind of bring it back and wrap it up. So I always ask this question, and the answer can't be, "Oh, I'll work with anybody." I get it. We know that you'd be a great real estate agent for anyone, but is there someone that you feel like you identify with that kind of makes for your ideal client if you could pick and choose? So I always say, for example, for me, I always seem to gravitate towards first-time home buyers. I really like working with them. I feel that they ask a lot of good questions, and they're not like the guy who bought 2 homes in his entire life and now he knows more about real estate than me. So that is my ideal client, our first-time home buyers. How do you feel in regards to if you could pick,
Yeah.
who would it be?
This should be on my vision board, and it's
It
not.
should be.
I'm gonna add it because
Yeah.
I was working on my vision board today again for 2024. I would like to. There's like two different kinds of people in my head.
Okay.
One kind of person is that last person you mentioned, which is like easy peasy, been there, done it, just need someone to walk me through the
Okay.
process, and
Yep.
bing bang boom, big commission.
Sure.
Right. The other type of person, which feels like something that is more connected to like my own experiences with people that I grew up with, is like
Go with that.
with people who, maybe couldn't afford to buy houses.
Got it.
Those kinds of people, and like helping them through having the ability to achieve the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
And to be first time homeowners, and maybe you start to educate them on how to build generational wealth and things like that. I think everybody deserves to have a home.
Yeah.
That they feel happy and safe in.
I
think
would
that-
agree.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So those are my two. Like one's more heart center and one's more like.
Well, I would go with the
I
heart
want
center
lots
one.
of money in my bank
Yeah.
account too,
Well, the money typically
I'm being
comes when
honest.
you go with the heart, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I find it.
Mm.
That's one thing in this business that I feel like we run into on a semi-regular basis is where you kind of sometimes see people doing things that might not be the right thing. And I don't mean like right for them. I mean literally like not okay. Like this isn't the right
Like
way
shady.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I typically find that although in the short term, maybe going the high road might not like get you that bigger paycheck or anything along those lines, my experience in this business, I've been in this industry for 26 years, and I have just seen a lot of people do things that, might not have been, nothing illegal, but like might not have been the right thing or not said the correct thing. And it always comes back to haunt you, number one. And then number two, I just think that there is something, as long as we're being all yogi,
Mm,
there is something about the universe that pays you back for that.
I hope so. I really do, because I tried to in my 20s just really quickly buy a place when I lived in Boston,
Hmm.
and I had a shady realtor,
Yeah.
and it did not go well
Yeah.
for like my family and I, and like our finances and things like that. So,
And I
you
hate
know,
hearing stories like that
yeah,
because all it does is hurt us down the road. By us, I
yeah.
mean like people in the industry.
Oh, absolutely. And so, like, because I've had that experience, I'm not going to do that to anybody.
That's right.
Like,
Well,
I've just never like go down that road. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, what else do we need to know about you? Is there anything else that we've missed? Because, the one thing about this is we're going on an hour and 5 minutes now,
Oh
and
snap.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have to like
No, time
speed.
flies when you're having fun. You don't have to speed up anything.
I mean, like
I've
in the
got the
editing,
time.
we'll have to like speed up some of the dialogue.
Well, we'll put
Um,
together what we do is we'll put together the entire podcast that'll be available to be seen on YouTube.
nice.
But we'll put together the the shorts for YouTube and for
Yeah.
TikTok and everything like that so people can view clips. And if they kind of like some of the stuff that we're talking about, we hope that they check out the full podcast and watch us go on our little journey.
Woo, woo, woo. I would just say, like, I feel like if, you know, there's always that question, like, how do you see yourself and how do you think other people see you? Like,
Okay.
I see myself as someone who's like very grounded.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very centered. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
like easy peasy, very calm. I have very strong boundaries, but also really fun
Yeah.
and easygoing. And I like to be lighthearted about things. Yeah,
Yeah.
and be very professional at the same time.
Right.
So
No,
I think that's the last thing I'll say about myself.
I get that.
Yeah.
We have an agent that has been on here before, which I want him to come back. Andrew Dubay. He's the gay realtor,
Mm-hmm.
and
Is that his like handle?
yep, the
I
gay
love it.
realtor.
Mm-hmm.
And he really, when he first got started into real estate, you should check out his story. He's on my podcast, and he talks about he was thinking about branding himself and the route he was going to go, and if he was going to like even mention if he was gay or anything along those lines, and he basically was like, you know what, I got to be true to myself. I got to do it. And he ultimately said that it was one of the best decisions that he ever made because now clients approach him and want to do business with him, and he doesn't have to be someone different. There's no like imposter syndrome there, and um, anybody who probably was going to create any kind of problems working with him to begin with isn't reaching out to him. So it almost like weeds out people that you know
Mm.
that you probably wouldn't have been a good fit with anyway.
Yeah, I love that.
So
I love that.
I like that
That's
you've
awesome.
been upfront about what to expect and
Mm-hmm.
who you are.
Yeah, I want to be quirky, a little quirky.
I love it.
It's all good.
So everybody who's on here for the first time, I finished the same way, just so that we've got a really good clip for you now that you're warmed up with chatting and everything. I ask that you look right in the camera. Don't look at me. Tell us who you are, who you work with, and anything that we need to know.
Sure. I'm Erica Arce. I'm with Carlson Group, and I am a realtor. Other things you need to know about me is that I do a lot of improv, I do some acting, and I do a lot of yoga. I like to have fun.
There she is. Call her. We
Call me.
appreciate you having on, and we have to have you on again. Thank you so much.